Hi, welcome to Love Saranghae with Peter and Andrea. In the next 30 minutes, we'll take you on a journey into the exciting world of entrepreneurship, relationships, and the secrets behind achieving that coveted glow. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Love Saranghae with us, Peter and Andrea. Today we have an incredible guest for you. Her name is Sabrina Greer. She's a best-selling author, PR strategist, TEDx speaker, and the visionary behind Fempower Publication, a powerhouse for amplifying female voices. But beyond her impressive titles, Sabrina is on a mission to empower women and girls to embrace their self-worth, share their stories, and claim their intellectual influence. We'll be talking about her journey from the beauty industry to publishing, her passion for self-esteem and body image positivity, and how storytelling can be a form of radical self-care. You do not want to miss this. Welcome, Sabrina.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
So, Sabrina, do you want to I know I sort of shared your bio already, but would you like to just tell our audience who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. It's a loaded one, right? That's the bio always just sort of like, it sounds so fancy, but really, truly, I'm a mom of three boys. I live in rural Ontario on a farmstead is what we call it, in the middle of a forest. And, I'm passionate about sustainability. I'm passionate about helping girls and women claim their voice. And I do that through multiple vehicles. I have a publishing house. I'm also a PR strategist. And most recently, that I'm honestly the most excited and proud of, is my nonprofit that I'm launching called the Fempower Foundation, which is all about helping young girls and female-identifying youth claim their voice through publishing initiatives, mental health programs, and so much more.
I'm so excited for this one. I can't wait to see this unfold. So I guess, Sabrina, a lot of people know you, at least in my circle, know you as the publishing powerhouse. You have published how many books already?
We've published over 450 women through solo books as well as collaborative books.
Yes, oh my goodness. And how many are actually best-selling?
All of them.
That's exciting. That's something to be proud of. You often describe yourself as a fashion model in recovery. So Sabrina used to be a Forbes model and a survivor of the beauty industry. Can you take us back to that time in your life and how did your experiences shape your views on self-worth, body image, and wellness today?
Absolutely. Okay, to take you there, I think I need to take you back a step further because I started modeling when I was actually 12 years old, which is insane to think because my sons are, 8 and 10. And to think just 2 years from now they could be going through what I went through is a little terrifying, actually. But I started, I was very badly bullied in middle school. I was called anorexic. I was called flat-chested. I was made fun of for being thin. And ultimately, that was what the modeling industry wanted. So when I was out in the wild, not in my middle school, people walked up to me and said, "You should be a model. Have you thought about modeling?" And I'm doing air quotes that nobody can see. I was discovered by a modeling agency when I was 12 years old, and I did the modeling competitions. And, it was really interesting because what I was bullied for, being too thin, was ultimately what this agency desired and what they found attractive about me, which threw me into sort of a spiral of what I now know as body dysmorphia and disordered eating. And it caused a lot of issues because in the modeling industry, I was told actually I wasn't thin enough.
Wow.
So at 12 and 13 years old, what I'd been bullied for several years at that point was now not good enough. So they wanted me to lose weight and get breast implants and inject my lips and change my physical appearance to be better. And now, our children and youth are experiencing such a different version of this with the usage of AI and what they call beauty improvement apps. So it's just a really interesting time. But that was my experience. So when I say I'm a survivor and I'm in recovery, those words are very intentional because it took a long time for me to realize that my physical appearance is not what defines my worth as a person, as a woman, as a human being. So,
wow. What was that like being 12, 13 in your formative years and being told that you need to go get breast implants or you need to inject your lips?
Yeah, it's
crazy
to think
I feel like at that time you're so impressionable.
Yeah.
And you're still figuring out your own body. And for someone to pick it apart in that way.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what it felt like, was being picked apart. There's actually a moment, and I think I was 18 years old. So I was in Milan in Italy on a contract there. So the way it worked in modeling is you would go overseas on different contracts, different locations. You would live there. The agency there would partner with your home-based agency, and they would send you out to different castings. So I would go to different castings, like sometimes 10, 15 in a day. And I remember very clearly, I was 18 years old. I'm wearing my little stiletto heels on cobblestone roads in Italy. No idea, like taking the tram with my big paper map. This is way before cell phones and, GPS and all of like social media, all of these things. And I get to this casting studio, and there's 3 castings in the same studio. And one of my friends was German, but Greek looked physically Greek, but she spoke German fluently. And these were German clients. And I remember asking her after these castings that we did together what they said. She's like, "Ooh, you don't want to know." I said, "Actually, I do. I really do." She said, "Well, the first one said that you were too skinny and that you should eat a sandwich. The second one said you were too fat and you shouldn't even be a model. And, the third one was like, they might hire you." So it felt like, the Goldilocks and the 3 bears. It's like, and what I realized in that moment, in hindsight, of course, at 18 years old, I was like, why? But now looking back on those moments, I realized it's all subjective. Like it doesn't actually matter. As long as you love the way you look, as long as you feel good in your body, in your mind, that's what matters. So that's what I want to say to any young people who are experiencing these things, because I know so many people, my sons included, right? They get off the bus some days and they're like, so-and-so bullied me because I'm not fit or swole, or these words that I just want to
swole.
I can't even handle it. The language is even different, right? So I see it in them, and I see it in our youth with these sort of, they call them beauty improvement apps. Did you know that? And the age rating on them is 4 years old.
Yeah,
so as parents, you see it too, I'm sure. It's
basically Canva or Photoshop for body.
Yes.
Right. So and it's designed to create a filter that makes you look desirable on the app. So, there's a whole detachment from what is reality and what you think should be reality, and obviously that kind of separates over time. And there's a word for it called cognitive dissonance, right? Yeah, and it creates real stress. It's crazy.
It also creates a sense of trying to achieve something that's so otherworldly. Like a young girl who's like, well, my nose should look like this because the app did that to my nose.
Yeah.
But it's not real.
Exactly.
So we have these expectations that like not even human.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Well, what's interesting is, Andrea always says that traveling is essential for seeing the world in a bigger light. And I agree. And one of the things I noticed was, in North America, especially for young boys or men, the idea of fit and desirable is this swollen bodybuilder look where everything is popping. But then we were in Switzerland, and the definition of fit over there is more like a mountain goat. Like you're 5'5", 5'6", 150 pounds, but you have steely little muscles and you're running up and down mountains. And that was the fit look, I guess, what you want to call it, was desirable over there. So, if you don't know that there's different things around this world, you would think that you have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger all the time, but that's not really the case, right?
It all depends on your perspective.
Exactly.
Having that perspective or the opportunity to have that perspective is so important.
So, Sabrina, around this time, what was the conversation like with your parents? How was that dynamic?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot because it sounds so almost unbelievable. Like I went to Taiwan for my first trip away from home when I was 16. I was there for my sweet 16 birthday. People ask all the time, like, well, where were your parents? And who did you travel with? And how you left high school? And like, how did that happen? So my parents, bless them, they're both still Earthside, and they've been married for almost 40 years. And they were foster parents. So they had adopted several children with special needs and that came from really challenging situations. And I had, probably 50 some odd foster siblings growing up, not all at once.
Yeah.
Came in once. So they were quite distracted and quite busy. There was zero lack of love in our household. And, I take it as a bit of a compliment almost that my parents believed in me so much that they thought I was mentally and emotionally capable of handling that level of intensity and travel at that age. But I probably wasn't in hindsight. But as I mentioned, it was before the days of social media. It was before the days of the internet. When I was in Taiwan, I was there for one of the biggest earthquakes that ever happened there. And it was on the front page of the Toronto Star, and it was on the local papers, but I had no way of contacting them for almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
So there was this interesting dynamic with my parents. They were busy with the other kids, and they had a lot going on, sports and driving and things and stuff, and like constant. And I was a very, very motivated and independent young girl who wouldn't really take no for an answer anyway. So instead of like having it be a rebellion, they said, okay, if that's what you want to do, go. But they were always there to sort of bail me out if anything was really scary. There were some situations where I had to fly home, or I had to, change course and do something different. And they were always there to support those choices. But, as far as the eating disorders and the body dysmorphia, and I think it was something I hid out of shame, and they didn't really know. And that's not, as a parent now, I can say that I would know if something was up with my kids. I can say that, but would I? I have a teenage son as well. And
you also have to think about the time. Like back then, I mean, you and I are similarly aged, and I don't remember those words being used. You'd have someone who's really thin or who would go to the bathroom after they ate all the time, but nobody really understood. There wasn't a label attached to eating and then making yourself puke. Whereas now we know that's bulimia. But at the time, we didn't, at least I didn't know that there was a term for that behavior. So it could even be a situation where this was how you were behaving, but you didn't see it as a condition or something wrong. It was just the way all the other girls were behaving in your environment at that time.
In fact, it was encouraged. I remember one of my bookers telling me to eat Kleenex, like tissue paper, to fill my stomach.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it was a thing. It was like the model diet was like tissue paper and laxatives. It was a legit thing at the time. So,
did you do that?
And that was before different diuretics and different things that happen now. So it was literally like we'd go to the pharmacy and buy a box of tissue and a box of laxatives, and that's what we would sustain ourselves on for the weeks coming up to a big job, and that was encouraged by the industry. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I'm in awe of that, and I mean you're not alone. There's so much of that, and probably a lot worse. It's just unbelievable to me. But beauty can mean, and what that final product, what went into that final picture or that final, outcome.
Well, we didn't have the beauty improvement apps, but we did have Photoshop.
Well,
and it was used.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, it didn't come from nowhere, right? This whole idea of photoshopping photos, it didn't come from nowhere. It came from. So, I mean, I guess one thing we can say is that it's no worse now than it was back then. It's probably the same intensity. It's just different. It's just different. So young girls and young men, young boys are going through the same type of pressures of what it almost seems like the world would be a better place. We're all just blind.
Or learned that beauty truly is on the inside. And I know that sounds cliche, and it's like, how do you enforce that, right? It's such an open-ended conversation, but I do think as parents and adults, we have a responsibility to teach our children that for real. You know, it's like what self-love is, about loving yourself, how you can take care of yourself, because it is important. You know, it's about taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your soul, and knowing that they're all connected. It's not just physical beauty. You can feel good by moving your body, by taking care of your skin, by taking care of your hair, by taking care of your, there's certain things by what you ingest into your body. Don't eat Kleenex and laxatives.
Yeah.
Food. Real nourishing food. Whole food.
Real food.
Yeah.
How would you say that this experience, or this whole, era of your life shaped your views on self-worth, body image, and wellness?
Oh, so much. I mean, if you talk about learning the hard way, hello, I did. It's interesting because of those experiences, all of those experiences, I feel like I can speak from those experiences and help other people, give them permission to share their truth. And that's how I sort of landed in publishing. I didn't have a guidance counselor in high school be like, you'll be a publisher one day. I had zero clue what a publisher even was or what this industry was all about. But I have a real passion for helping people amplify their voice. And that comes from those lived experiences. If we can turn our stories if we can turn our pain into purpose, if we can turn our stories into something meaningful, like a legacy. And that was how I got into books, because I was like, what better way for people to really amplify voices than help people become public speakers, help people become published authors, help people with this. So I actually have a degree in psychology and developmental psychology. I have an NLP certification, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I'm trauma-informed. So I got all of that education. But ultimately, at the end of the day, education's great. I'm not dissing formal education. But I do think it's my lived experiences that give me the credibility to be able to do the work I do now.
So how did you get into then publishing? Like, how did you get to publishing that first book?
That's another story.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Stories are good.
That's a good story.
It's interesting because, I did always dream. I didn't always dream of being a publisher. That's very untrue. But as far back as I can remember, I did dream of becoming an author. I always was writing poems and short stories and journaling, and that's how I have so much of these memories, because I did actually write journals of my travels and my trips and all of the things I was going through. So it's not just from memory, it's like actually going back. And, so I always dreamed of becoming a published author. And when I had the opportunity to do so in 2016, it was 2016, I worked with a traditional publisher and had a really actually negative experience. They loved what I did, but I had a podcast with the same name as my book. I had, I was launching a business. I was launching merchandise with the same name. And this publisher wanted the rights to it, the intellectual property rights. So they ended up in a lawsuit that took several years of time and money and energy. But ultimately, it was the catalyst for me then self-publishing the same book when I did earn my intellectual property rights back, and realizing that self-publishing was a very lonely and dull journey, and saying, there has to be a better way. So going back to hearing my grade 4's teacher's voice in my head saying, if it doesn't exist, build it. If it doesn't exist, create it, make it, go for it. And that's what I did. So I actually trademarked the modality blended publishing, and that's what we do. We blend the best of traditional and self-publishing together to...
So that again, you blend what together?
The best of traditional and self-publishing.
Got
So
it.
those are the two types of publishing that people know about. And so we blend the best parts of them and get rid of the stuff that's not any good, like other people owning your story, other people owning your intellectual
how does
property.
that approach challenge traditional gatekeeping? Like, how does that?
Yeah. So our authors own their intellectual property, which is obviously a very important value of mine after another lived experience that was the catalyst for creating that type of disruption in the industry. And it also gives them creative control. So I've heard a lot of stories of authors coming from traditional publishers saying, I hate this cover. It's not how I wanted it, but that's what they told me I had to do. So in a industry that's meant to amplify voices, it's dampening voices. It's controlling.
Interesting.
And that was really hard for me after everything I had already been through in my life when I'm trying to share my story publicly by publishing my book and feeling like here goes my voice again, right? It's being taken from me again by another industry. So I said, no more. This is it. I'm going to do something completely out there, and I'm just going to trademark this new modality, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it better, and we're going to do it differently, and we're truly going to amplify voices instead of making people feel like they're victims to another industry. So that's the long story short is that.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting though. I love what you said about if it's not done, then we're going to do it. Or if it's not done the way I want it to be done, or the way that makes sense to me, I'm going to create it. I'm going to do it better. And I love that message to everybody who's saying, I've tried this and I've tried that and it doesn't work and I just give up. There's always a way. But it's really more the will. And if you have the will, you can always find the way.
Are you finding that the traditional publishers are adapting to this new reality? Because I think the new reality will become the dominant form of publishing, given 5 or 6 years from now. Or are they dying off? What are you finding right now?
It's so, obviously I'm biased, so I can't give a very clear answer. But ultimately, I think it's becoming more difficult for traditional publishers because of these different ways of publishing. Because of self-publishing, and there's hybrid publishing, and there's vanity publishing, and now there's blended publishing, which I trademark so nobody else can use it. But, traditional publishing, it's becoming, so obviously the pros of traditional publishing are they have, names, credibility, like centuries for some of them. They're old, like they've been around for 100 years or something. It's crazy. So there's history, there's credibility, but a lot of them are still stuck in these sort of old systems. And now they're asking, so you have to have a very long book proposal. You have to have a marketing plan. Oftentimes you have to have your own marketing team as you go in. You have to have X amount of like social media followers. So there's criteria. Whereas the type of publishing I do, it's like, I want to give people the same feeling of being traditionally published where they feel like they're supported. They have an editorial team. They have creative control over their cover and what it looks like with professional advice on what's marketable and what's selling. And, we do a ton of market research on what actually works. And people do, unfortunately, judge a book by its cover the same way they judge a person by the way they look. But, we try to be really mindful of all of that when we put our books out. So it feels like that same experience, but they own their intellectual property and they have creative control. So I know that doesn't really answer your question around like where I think the publishing industry is going, but I think it's never been easier for someone to publish a book. Self-publishing is literally a couple clicks of a button. But because it's so accessible, because it's so easy, literally anyone can do it, which means there's people out there cutting corners and there's people out there, publishing things that aren't of great quality. And I'm all for it because I want people's voices to get out there. But I do see sort of this like move in the industry where it's almost becoming like, everyone's published a book.
Yeah.
I would say, I know you said it's easier than ever for people to publish if they wanted to. I would argue that people don't see it that way. Like the average person I've been in contact with, and I would say, I know a great publisher, you of course, and they're always like, no way. And it's so shocking. Like they've had this book idea on their heart for so long, but they just didn't know where to go with that, or they didn't think their story was good enough or worthy of being told.
And that's the key right there. I don't think it has anything to do with how easy or difficult it is to publish it. It's this stuff. It's the mind stuff that gets people every time. And I really do. So we only take on approximately a dozen authors a year. We're very selective in who we work with from that perspective, not from, oftentimes authors come to me and they don't have a manuscript yet. They don't have a book proposal, but I can tell by their heart and by their story that they tell me that they're going to be the right fit for us. And then I help them. People call me the book doula.
Yes.
It's probably because it's very much like birthing a child into the world. And the level of support required is that of someone you would hire or bring on as a caregiver to help with that process of getting it out of your body and into the world. So, yeah.
So, Sabrina, you've built like an entire platform around helping women share their stories. How do you see storytelling as a form of healing and self-care?
Oh, it's interesting because I've had so many authors come to me after they've published their book and say, you know what, I didn't even realize it at the time, but that process was like 10 years of therapy.
Yeah,
it was
cathartic,
the most
right?
cathartic experience ever. Yeah, and
people don't realize how therapeutic it is to write.
It really is. And that's why, you'll talk to the personal development gurus of the world and they say, journal, write your thoughts down, brain dump. Like these are all practices. We do the same practices when we're writing a book, right? So it's getting the thoughts out of your mind and out of your body and into the world. Now, I wanted to share a statistic actually because it's kind of mind-blowing. And I thought of it as you were speaking. So 88% of the human population, like people on this planet, desire to write a book.
Oh, really? Interesting.
88% is like on their bucket list or their vision board or somewhere in the ethers, they've put it out there that they want to write a book one day. But less than 3% get to the stage of actually writing it, and then less than 1% get to the stage of publication.
Yeah, I believe it. So what advice would you give to someone who's in that percentage and wants to write and, what advice would you give them to get started, or where should they start?
Well, I've got three things. So, one, just start. Like nobody knows what they're doing when they start doing it. Nobody knows how to start a business. Nobody knows how to write a book. Nobody knows how to start a podcast. If it's in your heart, it's for you. It's there for a reason. Whatever you believe in, the universe, like whatever it is, it's like it's put there for a reason. If you're one of the 88% of the people that desire to do it. Like what's stopping you, right? And then all the things that are stopping you, time, money, knowledge, whatever, your self-worth, your beliefs in yourself, like you'll get through those, but you have to start. Words that aren't on a page can't be edited. You can't get support with something that's not there. People don't read minds. Like you have to just start somewhere. So just start would be advice number one. Advice number two, don't cut corners. Don't cut corners when it comes, because you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll just like check it off the bucket list and I'll just like, try it over here and I'll do it myself in Canva and I'll use AI to write it and then I'll use spell check to edit it. Like that's what's changing the industry for the worst is unfortunately people who have that desire and go, oh, it is easy to do. I'm just going to do it this way. And then it puts a lot of like poor quality work out into the world. So don't cut corners. Like let this be, if it's in your heart, it's for you, and then put it out in the world and treat it like a legacy. It's important. Your story is important. If you need to share your story, you're being told to share your story in your heart, put it out there, but put it out there well, please.
I agree.
For the love of the industry and all things.
I've done 2 collective publications with you, and I'll say that, both of them were extremely therapeutic for me, but the first one especially, where I shared about my miscarriage and my 2 miscarriages and all the things that came with that, I didn't even know how good it was going to feel. I had no expectations of what the outcome would be or any of it, but was such a powerful release for me of emotion and just things I didn't even know that I was holding. And, so my advice to anyone is to book a call with Sabrina, because it's a beautiful experience working with you, and it feels a lot easier than I thought it would be. And your team is amazing. So you guys together collectively really make this whole process really easy. So I highly recommend it. Sabrina, I know timing is we don't have a lot more time with you, unfortunately, even though I have 10 million more questions for you. But there is something I do want to talk about, which is your Fempower, how do I pronounce it? Fempower?
Yeah, the foundation.
Yeah. I want to spend a minute on this at least. The foundation is dedicated to closing the dream gap for young women. What are some of the biggest barriers you see holding girls back today? How do you think mentorship and publishing can help bridge that gap?
So it's what I wish I had when I was a girl, when I was writing all those journals and going through the disordered eating and the, body dysmorphia and all the feelings. I didn't know how to process my feelings. There was no safe rite of passage for girls at that point in time to understand what's happening with our bodies, understand what's happening with our minds. And I think the goal of the Fempower Foundation is really to help support that. We want girls to feel safe in their bodies and their minds, and we want them to be able to share what's going on in their lives openly and publicly without shame. And I think the best way to do that is through publishing opportunities. One of our goals and initiatives is to publish an anthology, like a co-author book with girls under the age of 18 sharing a chapter, because it is a little overwhelming to be like, here, write a 60,000 word manuscript, little one. That's a lot. So we want to do these anthologies, and we're going to be doing public speaking and confidence workshops to help girls get on stage. We're also partnering with like TEDx, and we're doing some other things to bring these initiatives to life. And then we also have mental health support groups for girls that are going through maybe addiction or sexual assault or have experienced something that, is blocking them from being able to share their voice. There's so many books that are being published right now around people sharing their past from decades ago and only coming to terms with what happened to them now. So we want to really bridge the gap and, either help people avoid these things from happening by feeling safe to be able to say no, or, feel like they have a voice that's being heard, or allowing them to share their story in a safe place where, if something has happened to them or they feel like they've been voiceless, we can help close that.
This is such important work that you're doing, and it's so necessary. You need this. This is so powerful, and I'm excited to see how this unfolds. And also, if there's a way for people who are listening to donate or contribute, we will put that in the show notes. Sabrina, you can share all of that with us, and we will share that. If you have other questions, you can also DM us, and we will connect you to Sabrina. My last question, Sabrina, for you today is, you mentor and coach high-achieving women with the pressures of entrepreneurship. How do you prioritize wellness and self-care in your own life? You do so many things, and then none of them would be considered easy. So what advice would you give women who are struggling with juggling all the things?
I think keep it simple. I feel like we have this tendency to overcomplicate self-care. It's almost like we put it on a list, a to-do list, and it becomes this thing that we feel like we have to do or we're failing. So I have a really fancy coffee maker. I love my coffee. That's my guilty pleasure. And every morning when I push the button, it takes exactly 25 squats to make a coffee. So I do squats while my coffee's brewing. I have a walking pad at my desk where, and my desk raises up and goes down. So I walk at my desk if I can't get outside. Since I started using your skincare, I actually wash my face and do a skincare routine because it's easy. I used to I had this super complicated, complex thing before, and I was like, I used to dread washing my freaking face because it took so long and it was actually really hard. And like, but I love my skin, my cleanser. The cleanser is like my favorite thing on the planet. Oh, and my lip serum, of course. Don't leave home with that. So, but yeah, I think just keep it simple. Like find ways to move your body. Find ways to, I don't wear makeup, but having great skincare obviously helps with that because it's like wearing a filter without wearing a filter. Drink lots of water. Like hydration is so freaking important. I drink like 7 of these big mason jars a day. And, it's just simple. Eat real food, not tissue and laxatives.
Yep.
Drink lots of water, wash your face, and, move your body. Like, how easy is that? And I think that's it. Like, if I didn't do those things, I would feel awful in my body for, those are things that are true self-care, in my opinion. And get outside, too. Fresh air and movement outside and, sunshine, vitamin D, all those things are super important with your sunscreen.
I agree.
People might laugh about the whole tissue thing, but what they don't realize is 70% of all the processed foods in your grocery store aisle is just as bad or probably worse than tissue paper.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so true. Yeah. That's so true. Some of those things and those large ingredient lists for something really simple like mac and cheese, it's scary. But anyway, I think that's really good advice, is to simplify. Stop trying to make it complicated and fancy. Just, stick your face outside, drink the water, move your body, eat whole foods, and get rid of the rest. And whatever doesn't feel joyful. I think that's great advice. Sabrina, this conversation has been nothing short of inspiring. I feel like we could talk forever. I have so much to ask. So hopefully you'll come back and we can ask those other things and we can have more of this. But from reclaiming self-worth in the beauty industry to empowering women through storytelling, Sabrina, you really are paving the way for a new generation of female voices. And I think that's something to be really proud of. And I'm so honored to know you and to work with you and to have this year as a guest. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, both of you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
If this episode inspired you, please reach out to Sabrina. We will let you know how you can connect with her in the show notes. Reach out to us because your story matters and it deserves to be heard. Thanks for being here. Until next time. Thanks for listening to Love Saranghae with us, Peter and Andrea. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our show. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode and share this podcast with someone you think would love it. Until next time, love yourself, love one another, and love the world.